Hi, it's the 8th of January, and I'm here with your thought for the day. We're in part 7 of our theme of principles of prayer from the Lord's Prayer, this glorious pattern that Jesus taught us to help us develop in the greatest privilege that we have, and that is talking with God. I want to talk to you today about a principle that Jesus didn't directly mention in the Lord's Prayer, but which is implied when he told us to pray these words: "Your kingdom come and your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." And it's the principle of partnership with God in bringing heaven to earth. Do you know God has a plan to bring his kingdom on earth as it is in heaven? And God has said that will happen by my power, but it cannot happen outside of partnership with my people. You know, Jesus was asked a question by the Pharisees in Luke chapter 17. When is the kingdom coming? When is the kingdom going to appear? And Jesus answered the Pharisees and said, well, number one, you have to understand what my kingdom is about. And you don't understand what my kingdom is about. But then he turned to the apostles in Luke chapter 18 and he said, the question isn't so much when is my kingdom coming, but how is my kingdom coming? How is justice coming to the earth? How are circumstances going to be changed? How is healing and salvation going to break in? How is light going to break into the darkness over your cities and nations? And then he said this, he taught them a parable that they should pray and not give up. And in this parable, Jesus explains a powerful principle, and that is this: God has invited us through prayer into a place of partnership with him. In other words, the kingdom of God comes to the earth to the extent that his people ask him to do it. As we in our weakness come before God and say, God, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven, God's heart is moved and God releases righteousness. God brings healing. God brings salvation. God changes kings and presidents and rulers and times and seasons at the sound of our voice. In the book of Revelation, chapter 5, there's an amazing hymn that is sung at the end of history, and this is what that hymn says: you have made us kings and priests to our God, and we will reign upon the earth. And I believe the principle is going to be understood by the church before it's all over, that God has called us to a leadership function, to a governmental function in his kingdom, in bringing his rule and his reign to earth. And the way we do that is understanding our identity as priests. What does a priest do? A priest stands before God on behalf of men, on behalf of others. And God has called us in an intercessory role to stand before God on behalf of others and have a real impact on earth as we remind God of his promises. And so Jesus says, I am bringing my kingdom to earth, but I want you to ask me to release my kingdom rule on earth. And as you ask me, you will see real impact of your prayers in your situations, in your families, in your workplaces, in your cities, and in your nations. What a privilege! God has called us to be part of bringing his rule and his government to earth as we simply remind God of his promises and speak back to God the things that he already wants to do. It's really that simple. So principle number 7 out of the Lord's Prayer is the principle of partnership with God in bringing heaven to earth. Hey, that's all for today. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow for another thought for the day.